Hello, I am Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about utilizing the Monster Exchange or Trading Post system for Yusuke. So, Yusuke is the top prize card in the current collab that is going on, and it is because he is one of the most powerful leaders and most powerful subs possibly available. And we're going to be somewhat entering almost like a Dark Athena style era in which a large majority of your friends list will be owning him because he is now quite accessible. Now, utilizing the Monster Exchange system does have a reasonably high opportunity cost because you have to trade in either any combination of four 6-star Godfest exclusives or 6-star collab cards. Now, because of this, a lot of players are wondering, like, what can I trade in? What is safe to use? What is not safe? So on and so forth. And this article will hopefully shed some light onto how Yusuke performs and why he's worthwhile, as well as having a nice reference guide as to the cards you can trade in. So, I did do a rolling video for my free rolls as well as the $139 IAP bundle. I didn't get any, I'm not going to tell you what happened so you can watch it. But yeah, so I could trade in for Yusuke if I didn't roll him. That's one of the nicest things about it because overall this collab is quite lackluster outside of Yusuke and a couple of other cards that have uses but nowhere near as much viability. It's kind of it's a bit better than Full Metal Alchemist but still not the greatest overall. So, what does Yusuke do? He changes the board to water and light, which is what you need. He unlocks orbs and gives 1 turn of haste. Incredible high value active skill. His leader skill is basically, with double leaders, is 2.25 times health and recovery, as well as 225 times attack when hitting 7 or more combos using light cards, as well as achieving water light matches. So that is incredibly high amount of damage. And even though you may say, well, 225 doesn't sound incredibly powerful, you have to take into consideration that he has double 7 combo awakening. So his effective damage is 900 times for both your leaders. So you're pumping out basically reincarnating Anubis level damage. Like reincarnating Anubis has no 7 combos, and he has 900 times at full activation. But Yusuke has far more consistency in activating because 7 combos is pretty much always doable on a 6x5 board, whereas 10 is not. Furthermore, Yusuke also has the sweet Void Damage Penetration Awakening, which enables him to pierce through Damage Void encounters. Now, for the most part, you want a pixel card to have, obviously, the ability to have offensive awakenings and take ideal killer latents. And Yusuke has both. He has double 7 combo, so high personal damage, and he can accept any killer latent. So he's going to be able to pump out massive amounts of damage against that particular spawn. And this is what's going to make him very desirable because he's got a built-in board changer that solves the need for other orb changers because you basically want to buy color board changers for forming the 3x3 box because it just gives you the most number of light orbs possible. I might be sneezing soon, may not be. As well as having that high personal damage. So he can function as an incredible leader or as an incredible sub. So remember, as a leader and you're pairing with himself, you have 2 void damage penetration cards. So you're basically dealing double the damage. So you don't need to have as high damage output. Of course, Yusuke can still definitely be used on like other teams like say Anubis Diabolus or double Anubis if you're really confident in yourself. You are able to definitely utilize it and just pray you hit enough combos to trigger his full multiplier. Now, that is basically the general gist of it, and he can be very favorably compared to Edward. Now, Edward was definitely the flavor of the month beforehand, but he was quite hard to roll and a lot more exclusive and less commonly seen just because, well, not as many people have him. But the main benefit Edward has is that the damage reduction component, the shielding aspect, is more powerful than the health and recovery. And that is because it gives him more effective health, only by a little bit, but the key issue is he survives gravity-based attacks so much more efficiently. Like, gravity-based attacks that are doing a bit more than 100% of your maximum health, Edward survives. Yusuke does not. So that is a big advantage because Edward can basically tank these hits that you're not supposed to survive through without the need of an active skill shield. So this is meaningful, as well as having 99% gravities being significantly less dangerous overall. So Yusuke is still very durable, but Yusuke does trade up in the sense that he has higher damage output. So you're trading out some survivability for more damage output. Like, I just got Yusuke last night, and I played him around in Arena 4, and I was pretty amazed by how much damage I'm pumping out. Like, it's kind of like, wow, I'm just destroying things with very little effort. So it's definitely worthwhile to pick up, assuming you can afford the Monster Exchange. So The Monster Exchange or Trading Post system basically enables players to trade with Gung Ho for like various number of cards for something of their choice. And in the case of Yusuke, you're able to trade any 4 of these below shown monsters. And that means you can trade 4 Blue Odins. You can use, as long as it total adds up to 4, so you can trade multiple of the same card. So this is definitely going to ease the Magic Stone count in terms of chasing any of the diamond eggs in this collab. And remember, if you roll a diamond egg from this collab, you can use them to trade in for Yusuke. So we don't want to just blindly nuke our monster box because we still need to actually have stuff in there to function. And for the most part, you want to try and trade duplicates if at all possible, because at this point in time, Gung Ho is releasing new Mega Awoken evolutions for basically their 6-star Godfest exclusive cards, and those Mega Awoken evolutions, which we've seen from the blue and green Sonya, transform their usage and viability to the point where they're very desirable, and you basically just want to actually run and utilize them. So we don't know what's going to happen with basically all the other Godfest exclusives, but we can have at least some certainty knowing that it's going to possibly happen in the future. Like the Odins might become useful all of a sudden, like they're just kind of luxury or just kind of box cheerleaders at this point, but they might become magical in the future. We don't know. But with that in mind, you want to try and trade away duplicates unless it's something like cotton where you want tons of duplicates because you want all the different color cottons possible. So this article is obviously going to be focusing on the fact that if you don't have excessive number of duplicates, because when you have lots of duplicates, the decision of what to trade in is a lot easier by comparison. So I'm going to be including kind of like a nice chart, and I'll kind of be going through it quickly to just basically summarize the information for all the different trades that are allowed and possible. So there's going to be several columns or tabs. There's going to be the card itself, where they primarily are used or where they're primarily used as. It could be a leader, sub, or inherit. Are they currently viable, and are they valuable in dupes? Now, I'm just going to include symbols to make it a little easier to see things at a glance. So check mark is basically yes to the question. Question mark is maybe or somewhat. And X is no. Now, just bear in mind that this is my personal opinion. It's not an absolute truth. Take this with a grain of salt or as a starting point. Just because one card may be less or more valuable does not necessarily mean it's the best option or worst option for your individual monster box and needs. So, for the most part, the 6-star cards from the collab itself, they have some value with the exception of Sensui, whose name I hope I'm pronouncing, but most of them really don't have much value in duplicates. Like, in all honesty, some of them you may even want to just trade away if you have one, just because it might save yourself a much more powerful 6-star Godfest exclusive that you own. Now, the 2 Odins, like, the Blue Odin has some value, it does have 4 skill boosts, and yes, Whaledor does have 5, but Blue Odin still has better stats, more offensive awakenings if you're playing a water row farming team, so it can still have some value. It can be useful in dupes, but again, you can probably part with it if you have multiple. Red Odin is a lot less valuable because he only has 3 skill boosts, and that is a lower value, and a lot of red cards are heavily competing for his spot, and considering the fact that he has such a long base cooldown, he's just not as valuable overall. But again, people used to use duplicates, but it's less valuable for the most part. Dark Metatron is primarily used as a leader. She has reasonable value at this point in time, but she's definitely getting outclassed by sexier options, and she's not valuable in dupes because it's a leader. You don't really want to run her as an inherit or a sub for the most part. Dark Kali is usually run as a sub, for them, generally speaking, and has reasonable value and is reasonably useful in dupes, but again, she's still kind of waiting for extra power and potency, but she just had an evolution somewhat recently. Typhon is definitely a powerful leader. He is pretty viable for the most part, but in terms of dupes, it's kind of questionable. Maybe it could even be an X. You don't really want to inherit Typhon because there are better 4 elemental board changes out there, or even, to be honest, Nohime Tachibana, who produces more elements, but the shielding aspect is more important than haste. Reunite is actually quite valuable at this point in time because of the popularity of Blue Sonya, and to a certain extent people who still use Dark Athena, and she's definitely valuable in dupes because, well, we're going to run Reunite on our Blue Sonya team if we don't have any other option, and to be honest, I run 2 on mine, and it does pretty well. Sylvie is less meta by comparison because her board change colors are less desirable. It definitely works for Rashana, but it's not as powerful overall, and dupes, it depends. She's used as a sub or inherit as well. Sheet is mostly used as sub, I guess as inherit as well, but to be fair, at this point in time, flooding the board with water orbs is less desirable because row-based teams or blob-based teams are less sexy, and Sheet may not have as much value in dupes because, well, again, that active skill, it's over-flooding the board with those water orbs. The Eshimali has more value because her subform is more desirable because the double 7 combo awakening is much more powerful than TPA. And yes, the active skill may not be as desirable because you've overflood the board. There are still powerful mono dark teams out there, so Eshimali can definitely be used, and even having duplicates can be useful, although I did trade away one of my duplicates for Yusuke. Baldin is definitely viable because of his 4 or 5 killer awakenings, but it has questionable value in duplicates because the inherit, his active skill is mostly used for, I'd say, Riku teams, because the shielding aspect is paired with the damage augmentation, which is mostly helpful, I feel, in Arena 4. No, sorry, Alt Arena more so. But it's hard to run 2 Baldins on one team. Ranking dungeons tend to have no duplicate restrictions, so you can't even run double Baldin if you really wanted to, so that's a little downside, of course. Sharius Roots is primarily used as a leader or a sub if you need that guard breaking aspect or the extra killers, but it's not valuable in dupes because, well, for the most part, you're not going to want to run 2 Sharius Roots. The active skill you don't want to inherit, and as a leader, you obviously only need 1. A10 is in a similar boat, tons of killer awakenings, but really less value in dupes because, well, you're not going to inherit him. You're not really going to be running multiple A10s because then you have no other awakenings available on your team. Fujin is very valuable at this point in time, of course. However, I feel that in dupes, she's not as needed, and this is my train of thought. You're rarely going to need to have more than one Fujin or Fujin style active on your team, and if you're really desperate, you have your 1 plus a friend. You shouldn't be needing more than that because you're probably taking the wrong team into that dungeon. So in all honesty, having multiple Fujins is basically just like luxury. It saves you the need to swap inherits around. Maybe you can allow you to have 2 different leaders to have Fujin actives to be more popular, but it's less important for your own endgame personal progression. Again, this is my opinion. Some people love their Fujins to death, but I don't have a Fujin still, and I really don't see the need to own more even if I had one. On Mantastic, that is. Raijin has modest leadership potential, but really not valuable in dupes because, well, her active skill is pretty lackluster, generally speaking, but you'd only really need 1, to be honest. Yogg is definitely a powerful leader and a decent inherit, but in terms of dupes, you don't really want to run Yogg as a sub that much for the most part. I feel like it can work, but we don't know. He's a long way from now to receiving a new evolution and becoming viable, so I feel like having lots of duplicates of Yoggs is less needed for the most part. And then finally we come to Cotton, who is basically just an insanely powerful sub and insanely good in dupes. I just want to put double check marks to stress the point that don't trade your Cotton in, because Cotton is good in so many ways. You want Cotton in all the colors. Unless you have 10 Cottons, well, you do you. You're probably a large marine animal at this point in time. So 2 or 1 Yusuke's. So I can definitely foresee this being a very popular question because Yusuke is obviously a very powerful leader, but he's also a powerful sub, not only on his own team, but other teams. So if you are in the boat where you have lots of 6-star Godfest exclusives, or you're just very fortunate in rolling and you acquire a second Yusuke or thinking about it, it can definitely propel your team forward because he's basically a dream sub on his own team. He has all the components that you really want. He's got the great active skill, he's got the awakenings, and reasonable stat line overall. So having a second one can be meaningful, especially if your box is lacking strong 7 combo light and water cards. Now, with that in mind, should you be going out of your way to pursue it if you already have a decent light box or water box? Maybe not so much, because it is quite expensive and you may want to trade in for things in the future. However, again, if it's going to definitely improve your own monster box and level of progression, it may be definitely worth pursuing. So again, it's all up to your own personal preference and how much resources you do have available. And last but not least, we have this sweet picture of Yusuke as well as Yusuke from the Gung Ho stream. So, in conclusion, Yusuke is definitely the new flavor of the month, as he is incredibly powerful and he's quite accessible for the most part, just because we are able to trade in for him. So, at this point in time, my friends list is heavily populated with Yusuke's, and that's perfectly fine by me because, well, it is powerful. And in all honesty, he requires a lot more skill than Dark Athena because you need to hit 7 combos or you do basically no damage. So it may feel expensive trading in 4 cards for 1, but when you consider the fact that he's going to solve many problems, like he's a credible leader and a powerful sub, it's definitely worthwhile, I'd say, for the average player, assuming you don't heavily nuke your monster box and trade in 4 single copies of a 6-star Godfest exclusive. Now, in terms of moving forward, I do plan to write and release a team building guide for him in the next couple of days. It takes time, but it will happen at some point. So let me know what you've done in this collab. Have you rolled? Have you traded in? And how do you find Yusuke performing if you are fortunate to have him? So hopefully all the Mantastic day. Wish you all the best of luck in your own pad adventures. And happy puzzling.